Hey guys, it's WaifuGate here again. So today we're going to be doing another deck guide. This time it's going to be over 5-color Field of the Dead. It's going to be on Golos, Field of the Dead. So this is a new variation of the deck using some of the new Jumpstart cards that we got access to. The main two being Explore and Field of the Dead. So those are the two main changes to the deck. And we'll be going over in this video, we'll be going over matchups, like what are good and bad, sideboard tech, how the deck functions in general, and we'll be going over some gameplay of the deck as well. So if you guys are into that, stay tuned, and we're about to get into the list. Also, wait, before we get into the list, there's going to be an MTGA giveaway code inside of the video somewhere. It's like red text. So if you're interested in that, just keep your eyes out for it. It's first come, first serve though. Once the first person redeems it, that's it. And if you'd like to, you can drop what you get in the comments below. And that helps us keep up with the leaderboard, which is like, best pull, worst pull type of deal. It's just for fun, bragging rights, So if you guys are into that, look for the code, and let's jump into the list. So let's dig into the list here. So right now I have changed the deck since the gameplay video that we're going to get into next. The main changes are 2 crater hoofs, and yeah, I think that's pretty much the main changes, just crater hoofs and some of the sideboard. So general game plan, because that's what I usually like to do. I like to do game plan, matchups, sideboarding, stuff like that. So usually in that order. So how does the deck work? It's pretty simple. We just ramp. We go Explore, we go Growth Spiral, basically getting to run 8 copies of it. Growth Spiral in this case, which means that we drop Grazer. A little bit weaker against aggro, but it's not that big of a deal. Like compared to the other option, which is run Grazer over Explore. Explore kind of helps us out because it's not dead late game, unless we're up against an Arset, of course, which is kind of rare and historic. At least from my experiences, which, maybe I don't have enough data for that anyway. So ramp, board wipe, win con. This is ramp as well, and it gets us our Field of the Dead. So basically, Field of the Dead says enters the battlefield tapped. It taps for colorless. Whenever Field of the Dead or another land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands with different names, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So basically, you can see in our land bases that we have very many like 2s and even more 1-ofs for lands. And that's just to make sure that like once we get to 7 lands, we are indeed producing 2/2 zombies each time. This is helpful, especially with stuff like Rejuvenator, where we have different options so that, he comes into play, reveal the top 5, or you look at the top 5, like, that gives you a broad selection of lands. So this guy and Golos help us the most in getting different land types out. If that makes sense. Like, he sort of gives you a selection of lands, so you just pick the one that you don't have. And then oftentimes it's just like you explore, play your triomes, like your tap lands and stuff. And then you just kind of start going off. And eventually you can just drop Crater Hoof on 8, which comes down 2 turns earlier than Ulamog, which is usually the mirror breaker. Usually you're like, oh yeah, I'll exile your Field of the Dead, I'll exile this, and now I'm going to win. Instead, we use Ulamog, I think, in the sideboard as a 1-of now. Yeah, for like control matchups where we're expecting a lot of counter magic, stuff like that. It helps in those matchups more. So that is the general game plan. Kenrith can also come out of nowhere and win us the game as well with a bunch of tokens. If we get like multiple ramp spells and then we have one untapped red source. Something to note, when you go to cast Kenrith, it will always use your red mana. If you don't have more than one red source, it will always tap that down. It prioritizes blue or whatever else first. Just simply cast this for I just had to fix my camera real quick. Simply cast this for like auto tap it, or not auto tap it, but manually tap, so that you can get whichever lands you need for this guy in general, and that's it's pretty good. So Eugene's just here to, you know, break the control mirror sometimes, like if they blow counter spell, counter spell, counter spell, and then finally you get to resolve something. If you get to resolve this, you exile their planeswalkers and win. Plus it's really good in the mirror with Field of the Dead. Usually whoever resolves this first typically wins. Like if the other person can't really produce enough tokens, etc., and you can kind of keep up with them, because you can just -0 the Eugene each turn, keep control of that until you can push ahead yourself. So it just gives you control over the game. In regards to matchups, like what's good, what's bad, I would say Goblins is very, very tough. I'm trying something new with Grafdigger's Cage. I'm not sure if it's worth it. And I don't know if the Angels help, because you just end up dying. It's basically like Elf Ball. Like, if you guys remember that from Lorwyn, it just very, very much like a lot of creature production, and then boom, I make like, you know, 1,000,000 goblins with Krenko since he's hasted, and then I'm going to sack those for mana, play another Krenko, get another 1,000,000 goblins, and then they just play a banner or two, which banners are just like give all you know, all goblins +1/+1, and they get like 2 or 3 of those, and then all of their goblins are like 3/3s and stuff, and you have 20 of them swinging at your face, and it's over. And they can just do that combo on their own turn. So unless you board wipe them each turn to get rid of their combo pieces, it's very hard to get through that, you know? It's really, really difficult. And they have a lot of hand refill with like Goblin Ringleader, stuff like that, where they can put goblins into their hands or goblins from their deck onto the battlefield. Grafdigger stops Snoop, which is you can cast goblins off the top of your library. That's one of his effects, so it stops that. And then it also stops Muckus, or whatever the other goblin's name is, that's like a 6-drop that can put the top 10 cards, any of the goblins in the top 10, into the battlefield. So like it stops that. I don't know if it's worth it though. It also shuts off Kethis as long as they don't have Teferi out, which is kind of nice. So there's that. And we've got Historic Golos. So the mirror matchup I think we do pretty well in, because we main deck the 2 Crater Hoofs. So oftentimes we can just power through. The only times we lose this is when they have Eugene before us. And if people are copying the second place list, there's going to be like 2 or 3 Eugenes. So it's going to be Crater Hoof versus Eugene, and we do okay against that. I'd say like this is slightly favored game 1 for us. And then game 2, it's going to be who sees their sideboard cards the most. Historic Kethis. Kethis, I think we can race sometimes with the Crater Hoof, but oftentimes it's going to be a little difficult for us to keep up with it. We do have some cards to disrupt them, like Grafdiggers. I used to have Ashiok, and Ashiok worked really well against this too. So if Grafdiggers doesn't work out sometimes, the problem with like Ashiok, and this is kind of getting into the sideboard details a little early, but the problem with Ashiok 3-head, like the 3-drop, is that you can only exile on your own turn. Something like Soul Guide Lantern or Crypt allows you to crack it at any time. So your opponent can't fill their graveyard after they've forced you, or after you've used Ashiok, if they have like Diligent Explorer up or something else, and they can just refuel their graveyard anyway. Like, you're not going to win that matchup because they're just going to refill their graveyard. Something like Soul Guide gives us a better option. Even Grafdigger's Cage, I think, is better in some aspects than Ashiok, because it forces them to draw into another Teferi. And if we're packing something like Veto or whatever else, we might be able to stop the Teferi from coming down to begin with. But it's definitely a weird matchup. But I think we have, like, you know, a 50-50 against it, probably. Not terrible. Gruul, we have a better chance against Gruul than we do against Goblins, because Goblins can just keep refilling and such. Gruul, if you smash it once with the board wipe, sometimes you can get there, you know? Like, just because they go all in all the time. for the most part. Embercleave hurts, but we can usually beat that card anyway. So hopefully we can just kind of get there next time. Or not get there next time, but just like get there in general. I'm still waking up, so you gotta bear with me for a minute. Let's say we have a pretty okay against that. I mean, Golos we went over. Historic Breach, I haven't seen this deck yet, so I'm not sure. I'm still getting back into Historic, so I'm still trying to catch up with all of that stuff. Mono Blue, I'd say we struggle a bit against it, just because they if they get if they get ahead of us, we don't really have Graze or anything to block the little creatures. And all of our blockers are on the ground for the most part. I think for all the part, actually. So that's really, really tough. I would say that this is probably one of the worst matchups, unless we can somehow, like, just mass produce tokens, keep going, force counter spells, and then all of a sudden resolve Craterhoof somehow. And then we can win, but that's kind of a tall order, you know? I would say that if they swarm us in the air, it's really, really difficult. Same thing with something like U-White Flyers. And we've got like Historic Bant, which we've already Historic Bant Ramp. So this one, I think like the video you guys will get to see it in a little bit after we go over the sideboard stuff. But we were actually against Bant Ramp, and I think the matchup's like very hit and miss. I would say if we see our sideboard cards, we definitely win. And if we can stop Eugene, basically it's like veto on Eugene wins us this matchup, but that requires us to also answer the Teferi with something. So we have to ramp, deal with the Teferi, pressure it, and then hopefully we can get there. But it can be a little explosive, this list, but ours can too. So and we've got Historic Rakdos Luris. Should be able to do well against most sack lists in general. They can't really claim the firstborn on all of our creatures. So like even if they can claim the firstborn on our Uro, we most likely have a 2/2 to block it at that point. Like if it gets to the point where we're developing Uro, then we're probably fine with them claiming it and sacking it, because it's not going to do that much. We'll be able to block and then like take a few damage from Mayhem Devil, hopefully shatter and kind of get back into it. Basically, you just have to be aware of your opponent's ability to put Luris into their hand and then cast stuff that you previously shattered the sky. Once you shatter in this matchup, it is not over until you deal with a Luris, and then you like bring in the Grafdigger's Cage, because they can't really deal with that card too well. It'll stop Luris from bringing stuff back into play, and it will also stop the cat from coming back into play too. Sorry, that took me a second. So I'm not sure if I'm missing any other big meta deck from that type of stuff. Like from the meta, sorry. Like meta lists. Like Reclamation's probably a little bit rough as well, but we do have Thought Distortion, which is nice. So getting into the sideboard and like numbers and stuff, this is still experimental. I'm not sold on it, but it seems like it deals with Kethis, it deals with Sacrifice, and it might help with Goblins. Goblins are just rough, man. Like I'm not really sure. I ended up giving this deck a rest for a minute after I kept doing Goblins, came back, and the matchup was still okay. Like it got a little bit better with Grafdiggers, but I still need more testing. I don't know if these two are good, like this duo. The idea here is like this is better against Gruul, I think, because we have first strike, so we're able to keep up with like Embercleave to some point, like with double strike, because first strike combat happens and then second does. So like we can still kind of fight that a little bit. So this one isn't legendary for one, so if we had multiple copies, you should do multiple copies of Baneslayer. I just don't have the wild cards. I do, but I don't want to spend them. So flying, first strike, lifelink, other angels get 1/1. So if you have both of these, this becomes a 6/6, this becomes a 5/5, and it's kind of nice. The downside is that sometimes the opponent will bring in like fries if they expect the angel squad. So like just keep that in mind. The Knight of Autumns are for Golos mirror matches, where you can blow up their Golos for 3. I like it a lot because it's 3 mana. It puts a dude on the table to maybe protect your planeswalkers or whatever else later. And it can pressure too. It can pressure their walkers, so it's nice. 2 vetoes, these are mostly for like any type of control or Bant Ramp where you want to counter the ECD, you want to counter Teferi, you want to counter Eugene is the biggest one probably. It's pretty nice. And then you've got Questing Beast to also run down the control decks. This is useful against like Esper Dance. We do pretty okay against Esper Dance. I mean, I guess we don't have any exile now, so we're probably weaker in that matchup. I think that the 2 Heliods could very easily become anything else. People were telling me that Shrine decks were very, very popular in Historic, but I think that's only for best of 3. I haven't ran into any personally, but like maybe my sample size is too low. But I would say we could. This is the most trimbable card in the sideboard, I think, right now. Followed by maybe the Baneslayer Angels and Lyra, and then Grafdiggers if that's not working out for you. For like better graveyard hate like Soul Guide or a Crypt. So I would say trim one of these for something else. This is just for like Esper mostly. Bant Ramp, it helps against it as well. Like you just exile all their ECDs and everything else if they're just hurdling their counter spells, like, you know, they're just hoarding them, hiding behind their hand. You just absolutely Space Jam dunk on them with this, like half court style. It's really nice. Oftentimes this results in a scoop from the opponent as well, which is awesome. That's pretty much it. I'll have a more in-depth sideboard guide later too, but that's basically the gist. This is mostly against Gruul or other types of aggro. It can help against goblins, but I'm not really sold on it 100%. And in regards to the main, I like this setup right now. I like it right now. It's pretty decent. So we're going to jump into the gameplay and kind of get into how that works. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. Tomorrow or the next day. I have to cast tomorrow, which is going to be weird because it starts at 4 p.m. CST and my stream usually starts at 2 p.m. So I don't really have a lot of time to do the stream. This looks okay. Am I going first? This is against control, so kept a pretty okay hand against control since we don't have a board wipe. Full tie. Might be Field of the Dead. Yeah, I'm gonna be commenting MTG. It's a pretty good pull for us. We rejuvenate our next turn and we're on 5 lands. Quickly. They might have an Essence cap scatter. Nope. They have a Ketria Triumph here, so we don't want any of these name lands here. Well, we have a big choice there. So this automatically comes in tapped no matter what. Get another tap land here. And they're also trying to ramp. Will that be on here? No, it'll be on Sidetrack's channel. He does the hosting for the MTGA Zone Historic Tournament, which is what I'm going to be commenting on. Pretty chill dude. Usually wears a tank top. They could have a Shatter. I think they're on Field of the Dead as well. We don't have a forest yet, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and Golos will get us our 7th land. That's fine. We'll just grab... We could grab a Scryland, I guess. Green, blue, red, blue. No, we need a Triumph. We just grab this Triumph since it gives us the off colors that we don't have anymore. We'll start schmorking down. Get that Crater Hoof off the top and just win. Elspeth's? Okay. Blah. Do. Get another Field of the Dead. Oh, that'd be Pog, though. Oh, that was all of our mana, though, so we can't haste. I guess I couldn't haste, which is kind of sad, but it's still probably worth it to force them into having the Shatter. Oh, they just have a straight-up Yorion in their list. Okay. So they get Kenrith with this, which is fine. We just need to top kick another, like a Crater Hoof or something. Be fine. They can trade with one of these, it's fine. We'll get them down to 10, and it's still really good if we Crater Hoof them, so. Okay, Uro, yep. Okay, no extra lands from them, they're stuffed on lands, which is great for us. Means they're really, really struggling. I think I would have Omened before, but maybe they drew into the Omen. 2 to the top's terrifying. Means they got Hot Fire. There's our boy. It's a wrap. With some hummus in it. Spicy. I guess Ulamog can come in. I think Ashiok's really good too. They might be running like Migration Path or something. And exiling their graveyard's kind of fun anyway. Trim 1 Golos. No, that's not right. And trim Uro. Trim like 1 Rejuvenator probably. And probably take out the Shatters, like 2 of them. We can leave 2 as an emergency option against Yorions and such, but honestly I don't even want to bother with it. I kind of wanted to schmork here. Maybe like 1 Veto, but it's pretty weak against Teferi, so I don't even want to deal with it. Maybe Questing Beast could be okay, but it gets stuffed by Yorion, and they have main deck Yorions, so I don't know. I think this is fine, and then we'll try to schmork him down next game. If we don't get there. That Crater Hoof makes me want to craft the second one. I think 2 is the perfect number. This is terrible. Only have 1 land. This looks fine. I mean, Ulamog's fine, but I just want to make sure that we have lands to ramp with here. I know in a 30 card list I should probably just believe in my deck a little bit more, but we got Field of the Dead rolling already. Uro, okay, so they're keeping up with the ramp. That's respectable. If they shock in a blue, we might not spiral on time. Okay, so we could just get to spiral for free then. Pretty cool. Let's do that first. Draw. Okay, can we cast the spiral? We can. Shock this in. We're definitely ramping up here. Yes, sir? Okay. We have Eugene, we have Ulamog. A lot of answers to that. Yox, okay. We can go and get Field of the Dead. Then we can go Temple, I think. I want that. Okay, so we got blockers for this. As long as they don't have something like Casualties of War, we're fine. Casualties blows us out. Casualties blows up an artifact, creature, land, planeswalker, etc. So they can go artifact here, here,
kill a creature and then kill Field of the Dead, and that catches them up quite nicely. Just depends on if they're on that or not. They could also have a Shatter the Sky, which would be pretty legit. Just to get us off of Golos here. Have Fairy. Okay, so that can bounce Golos, but that's scary. I don't think they want to do that. They bounce a token instead, so we can't just chump, which makes sense. Now what? So they shock in a land for Shatter? Oh. Very weird. Maybe a Crassus? They could Crassus and gain some life, that way we can't swing at Nissa. Be pretty interesting. Wasn't really expecting the Nissa to be fair. I think maybe I would have sideboarded slightly different had I known Nissa was part of the equation. Eugene still like hoses them. Like Eugene minus right now still like pulls us ahead since we won't even get rid of our dude. Okay, so I didn't use their floating mana either. It gimped them a little. It was good for us, bad for them. Elspeth's, oof, that's a rough one. That's super tough. Oh man. Definitely just need a Eugene here. I'm super lit too. Can't really keep up with this. You're definitely shmorking me down. The blocks. There's our Crassus. And Crassus for 6. Not terrible. Just to do this. And now we've got some pressure on Nissa at least. Now our non-creatures cost more, so like Ashiok will be more. If we need a board wipe, it's more. They have to have like another Crassus basically. Well, no, they don't have to, but another Crassus would definitely do it because their Crassus is a lot thicker than ours. Nissa is doubling their mana right now whenever they tap a forest, which is all of their lands aside from these two. Our set's fine. We already drew our extra cards. Not too worried about that. We still pull ahead here with a Behemoth as well. Like we just wipe the board. This gives everything 4/4. That'll be 6s across the board, yeah. But I can do this and make it even more, right? Is this lethal? It can only block 1. This is lethal, yeah? There's no way this isn't lethal. Crater Hoof is broken. It's so broken, dude.
So hopefully that helped you guys get a better understanding of the deck and showed off some gameplay. So hopefully you can kind of understand like how the deck flows or how it's supposed to flow in theory. It's not always going to go that smooth. You can see how it did against something like a grindy matchup like Bant Ramp, how we can kind of pull ahead sometimes despite the number of planeswalkers and such that our opponents sometimes put out, which is awesome. And you know, if you guys like these deck guides, I usually do like 2 to 3 of these a week throughout the week. I put out a new video each day, and one of them could be a deck guide. So if you guys are into that, you can hit the subscribe button down below, or you can wait until the end screen. It'll show you like next video or subscribe. You can just click there. It really helps the channel out. And if you guys have any questions, always feel free to drop them in the comments below. And if you don't feel like doing that, you can always stop by my stream. I usually stream from 2 p.m. CST, Central Standard Time, until about 8 p.m. So I hope to catch you guys there, and I hope that you guys have a good rest of your day.